Welcome to the Successful Nonprofits Podcast. My name is Lexi Linger, and I am your host for this episode. When you took a look at today's title, you might have recognized Rick Elmore's name from his former college and professional football days. What you might not know is that since then, Rick has developed his own technology for and founded his own robotics company. This company, Simply Noted, uses robots to write handwritten letters and cards on a massive, massive scale. And I know we're going to talk more about Simply Noted in just a moment, but I have to side note and say the really neat thing about this company is that the robots actually hold pens. So when we're talking about mass producing letters and cards, I'm not talking about using your computer's Bradley hand font and mass printing it in your office printer. I'm talking about robots that actually put real pen to real paper, so your letters actually look handwritten. Now, the reason I'm so excited Rick is here with us today is because we know that handwritten notes are a very effective tool for fundraising and friend raising. But we also know that most nonprofit executives and development teams do not have the time to sit around and write a whole bunch of handwritten letters and cards. So I am so excited to learn more about the power of the handwritten notes and what a company like Simply Noted can do for nonprofits. Rick, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks so much for having me today, Lexi. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me. We had a lot of technical difficulties there at the beginning, so we're getting a pretty late start. But I'm so glad, Rick, for your patience. I'm grateful to you for hanging in with me and sticking this out. And I am really looking forward to our conversation today.
So am I. Yeah, no worries. It was not a problem at all.
So before we got started, we were talking about you having your own personal experience with how helpful handwritten letters and cards can be. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah. So in a previous life, before starting my own business and becoming an entrepreneur, after I got done with the NFL, I got into corporate medical device sales and marketing. I worked for a company called Stryker, pretty large medical company, and had a lot of success there. Basically just applied everything that I did as an athlete: work hard, grit, passion, perseverance, desire, get up 8 times after being knocked down 7 times. But, after about 6 or 7 years, I was really looking for a way to differentiate myself and take my career to the next level. What I ended up doing was, using an old technology. It was a pen plotter at the time. And I put together, I don't know if this is on video, but I put together about 500 handwritten notes with an old pen plotter. And I got a list, off a listing service of clients in my territory that I did not work with. And I sent them out a handwritten note. What was really fascinating, if you're in sales, these doctors, they were calling me. Out of those 500 handwritten notes, I got 28 doctors to call me. And as a sales rep, that never happens. I was like ecstatic. I was like super excited, like, no way. People want to talk to me versus me forcing my way to talk to them. Well, these doctors would call and say, "Hey, Rick, like, this is really cool. Thanks for sending me a handwritten note. People don't do this anymore. This offer sounds good. Let's book a lunch and talk about it." And I was like, I was super excited. So off those 28 responses, I had a $50,000 a month quota. I got about $280,000 in sales in about 6 weeks. My whole company was going absolutely nuts. My VP of sales was just like, "Man, what are you doing? It's working." And what was working was just sending good old fashioned handwritten notes, 99% open rate. It's rare. No one's doing it. The mailboxes are empty. And really, perception is reality, right? I was really trying to connect to these doctors in a personal way, and it worked.
Yeah, that's really neat. So how did you take that experience and start Simply Noted?
Yeah. So, it really goes way, way back. Both my parents were small business owners. My stepdad's a contractor. So I grew up basically being like, his physical laborer, on weekends. That was how I made some money, pulling stuff up the ladder and down the ladder. He was a roofer. And then my mom was a medical biller. But that afforded them the life to be very flexible. They were really involved with us. So they went to like all our games. And what I've noticed was, as I was becoming more successful in corporate world, a lot of these executives were divorced and did not have families. And that was not a culture I wanted to fit into. I highly valued my family. But after about 6 years in medical device sales, I wanted something more. I went back and did my MBA in 2017 at the University of Arizona Eller Business School. I was about a year into my program, and I was sitting in a marketing class, and this marketing professor was talking about all the success rates in marketing, and everything was super nominal. It was like super low single digit numbers, like 3%, 9%, 7%. It was doing like cold calling, direct mail, email, all the normal stuff that people use, right, to market businesses. And at the end of this about 3 hour long lecture, because I took two 3 hour long classes once a week, it was very long. This professor said, "Hey guys, like, you know what still works more than ever, if not better than ever, is a good old fashioned handwritten note. It's rare. They get open 99% of the time." And I just thought that was an absolute no brainer. But I had 400 clients in my medical sales job. I was like, how am I going to sit down and write 400 handwritten notes? It's not possible. So I started researching. There was a company that was focusing, they were using hand fed 3D printers to do thank you cards for weddings, which I thought was an absolute terrible niche. Because if you think about it, like if anybody's ever been married or planned a wedding, you know how stressful planning a wedding is and how often things change, and you're basically getting 1 or 2 time clients. And then there was somebody really focusing on sending like thank you cards to, like, your neighbor, your mom, your sister. And I just thought it was just such a powerful business tool if we can figure it out. So, fast forward about 5 years, we had last month 380,000 users on our platform. We've invested about $850,000 into our own handwriting robots. We're the only company in the world that's truly built their own handwriting robot. There are some companies leveraging, pen plotters or like, the auto pens from like the 80s and 90s. But in order to get the most realistic, genuine, high quality product, it was absolutely needed for us to build our own handwriting robots. So really excited about it. I'm really excited about, what the future holds.
Yeah, I have so many questions for you. I'm struggling a little bit with figuring out where to begin. I want to back up a little bit, and a couple times you've noted the value of handwritten notes really lies in that connection and people looking for a connection. And also it really makes you stand out because people, as you said, don't send letters anymore. I can't actually remember. That's not true. Actually, every time I travel, I send my kids a postcard. So that was the last time I put something in the mail that was handwritten. Before that, I can't remember when the last time was. So I guess I want to stop and back up. Do you have any other thoughts about, we know that handwritten notes are effective, but why?
Well, we live in a digital era. So since the inception of the internet, I would say probably more like the late 90s, early 2000s, the last 2 decades, we've lived in this digital world. The average person receives more than 4,000 digital notifications a month. That's email, text messages, phone calls, push notifications. I mean, we're just completely swamped, overwhelmed, and inundated, with our phones. Like, here's my phone. Look, it literally just went off. My phone literally just went off. I want to take this and just chuck it because it's literally a nuisance. Look, it just went off again. Like,
I'm receiving a phone call
yeah,
as we're having this
yeah.
conversation. Thankfully, it's on silent from my son's pediatrician. Yeah, it's nauseating. Hearing you say
It's
that
obnoxious.
it is.
It's obnoxious.
And even thinking about that number is stressful.
It is. And you know what? And the problem is that there is no personal connection anymore in business. There's a study that was done by Harvard Business School that shows that 80% of consumers or clients don't feel appreciated. They don't feel a personal connection to the business they're working with. They say at least 1/3 of your clients will just try somebody else just because. Like, just reason, like they don't feel any loyalty to you. Yeah, I mean, and people are looking for ways like they're craving personal connections, they're craving experiences because this digital noise that we're living in is just going to get worse. Now we're entering the AI era. I don't know if a lot of people are paying attention to this, but the world's going to change even faster than it did in the last 30 years. So I think what we're doing, everybody's kind of zigging and going this way. We're zagging, we're trying to get people to really pay attention to what really matters in business. Like, if there were no relationships in business, your business would fail. Like, at the end of the day, you have a different option for everything. There's different cars, different phones, different nonprofits, different handwriting companies. Literally, there's an option, a competitor, or a second option for everything out there. So at the end of the day, you got to have good product, you got to have good service. But the businesses that strive and survive and go the distance are the ones that build strong communities and loyal relationships. And that's what we're trying to do with our business, is help people build like raving fans, super loyal clients, and build these communities where, like, your clients want to lift you up and help you keep going forward. And the way you can do that is through relationships.
So I shared with you before we started talking that as a nonprofit professional in my head, I know that handwriting letters and cards is effective. And I also totally understand people don't have the time to do it. And so I get the drive for using robots. But as you know, in my personal life, when I receive mail that looks like it's handwritten, and it's usually that like the computer junk and it's spam stuff, people trying to buy my house or something like that. But I feel like they're trying to trick me or something, into opening their letter. And so I'm wondering, when we're talking about mass producing these, underneath that is the need to build a relationship and a connection with people. How can you do that when there's robots writing your letters?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we work with a lot of like high ticket priced item companies or high like influential clients who have like really important relationships. So say like a nonprofit, like every donor is really important to you guys. And the last thing you want to do is send them like a fake handwritten note because like you want them to feel like it was a genuine personal outreach. And you know what? When I started this company back in 2007, well, really end of 2018, we started with these old technologies and I thought they were going to be good enough. And we were getting the feedback that, hey, like we can see some patterns. And I never wanted it. Like I never thought I was going to have to, but we built our own handwriting robot. We're the only company that has done that to do exactly what you were just talking about, to make sure that they don't look computer written or robotically written. These older technologies that, people use, they use outdated software, outdated handwriting engines. They're using third-party plugins. They're leveraging, technologies that were built in the 90s, and they're trying to get them to work here in the 2020s. And it's just not possible. So, our robot mechanically is 100% our own design. The software, the handwriting engine, which probably is the most important part of our robot, it's like the handwriting engine actually drives the machine, is 100% our design. So there's no restrictions that go into the handwriting style. So if you want unlimited variability, we can do that. We also have an algorithm that does glyph. A glyph is a character within a handwriting style. It's called glyph manipulation. So it constantly varies every single time you write it. So if you wrote, even if it was the same glyph 1,000 times, the AI would actually manipulate it so it would be slightly different. Pen pressure slightly varies. Kerning, which is the natural spacing between letters, constantly varies. Ligature styles, left line jitter, line level warping. I mean, there is so much. And my background is in football and sales and marketing, and I started a software, robotics, and industrial automation company. And the only way we've been able to be successful at this is just doing what I was good at before, is just obsessing about, progress. That's what made me successful as an athlete. And we've done that here at Simply Noted. We've literally created our own pens because pens weren't good enough. We've created our own writing robots because the robots off the shelf weren't good enough. We've created our own software technology and handwriting engine because that wasn't good enough. So I really think that's what separates Simply Noted from the competition, is our obsession for progress, our obsession for the technology and investing back into the technology, where some other platforms, they just get something off the shelf and they just dump it all into sales and marketing. Like they just dump it all into PPC and like a sales staff. And it's like, that's not going to work long run because that product will not win in build repeat clients. So yeah, I think we've obsessed about this to make sure, that when you get it, you're going to feel that warmth and connection that you're trying to create at scale.
So we don't actually share the video. So for those of you listening, my jaw dropped like 3 times while Rick was speaking, because it never occurred to me, thinking about different pressures or, the spacing between lines. Like, wow, I never even thought about any of that, and used a lot of words I'd never heard of before either, and in describing all of that. But
I can talk about an hour for just the pen technology. Like we literally create our own pen inserts, because if you're writing hundreds or thousands of these a day, like the pens that you buy at the store, they're not pressurized, they're just vacuum sealed. So they're not constantly pushing the ink down. So what happens when you write with a pen, right? Sometimes it streaks. Like that's not good. We actually control the viscosity, which is the wettability of the ink. So like we control what ink goes in our cartridges. Like that creates a better smearing effect, which again is like something you get from a pen and not a printer. I'm telling you, like I have vivid dreams every single night about this process because I'm like so obsessed with it and I'm just passionate about it. Like I'm here at, sometimes 11 o'clock midnight on our really busy times just to help out. And I'm just like, I look at our warehouse, I'm just like, this is so cool. Like our robots with our pens writing all the time. I think we're solving a real problem. I really do. I think, people are just craving that connection, and we're just a reliable, easy, efficient, affordable way of doing it.
So can you personalize each card, dear Mr. whatever, thank you for your X dollar donation. And so like each
Absolutely.
letter's okay. So do you have your own technology that does that, or can you like tap into Salesforce or something?
Yeah, so the way that we can either integrate and automate it, we use Zapier, which is like a no code automation tool, or an API, which is just an application programming interface, which a lot of our nonprofits who work with us, what they'll do is like 2 or 3 cents a year, either like doing announcements or top of mind a holiday, a reminder for, hey, like Giving Tuesday or something like that, or end of the year, like you need tax write-offs, that type of stuff. It's like if you just have a spreadsheet, that's what they'll send us, a lot of them. And as long as it's in a spreadsheet, it's just like mail merge or variable data printing. It's like, hi, first name, thank you for your X donation. What our technology does, it just goes and inserts that variable into the message. So it's hyper personalized. And you can like hyper personalize it down to every single word if you wanted to. But it's really that simple. I mean, if you have a list of 100,000 donors, you literally can send 100,000 completely personalized handwritten notes in like literally minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes.
So what kind of letters are you seeing nonprofits write? Like I'm thinking those annual giving campaigns, thank you letters. Do you see them using for other stuff?
Yeah, so we have seen them use it for more of like fundraising purposes. We do work with a pretty large nonprofit. What they'll do is like they'll leverage just like the handwritten envelope with a real stamp, and they'll put like a print piece inside, just like help with cost. But it's just like that handwritten envelope, it helps increase that open rate, to 99%. And I will go to my grave with this, and I have this conversation multiple times a year, with larger clients, like, oh, we can just do a print piece at like, 35 cents or 60 cents. I'm like, yeah, it's 60 to 70% of that's going straight in the trash. Like literally take that $100,000 project you're spending and give me 70 grand of it, and I'll put it into another project and send a third of that and get you a better response rate. It's changing people's minds. You got to get them to think about engagement rate. Thanks for asking me for that $5,000 donation with this really cheap printed letter versus, hey, why don't we put something more personal in writing and tell them how much we appreciate them and how this $5,000 can help us, or how we can help, change someone's life. Like that story, that connection is so much more powerful. And I get it. Like we're drinking our own Kool-Aid over here. I call it our own champagne because I really do believe this product is very special. But it's like getting you to change your mind, right? It's like, how are you connecting to this person a couple times a year? How are you engaging them? How are they perceiving you or perceiving your nonprofit or your business? Like put yourself in their shoes. Would you want to open this and get excited to respond? Are you going to remember this, right? What are you going to do to make it a memorable touch? And that's what we're doing, is creating those memorable moments at scale.
I have one slightly off topic question. The handwriting that is used, where does that come from? And could I like send you a copy of my own handwriting sample or something? Like, how do you make that look personal?
We have like a array of about 900 handwriting styles, but it really comes down to being like analysis paralysis. It's like at some point you're just like going to glaze over everything. So we have about 30 options available on our website. We do have like people of interest, or people of like influence who have like online like personas. Like if they're going to be sharing this stuff online, they want their own handwritings converted. So what we do is basically send you like these like silly worksheets to fill out. It's like write out your alphabet, your numbers, your punctuation, write out these silly sentences, all these words. And there's really like a method to that madness, because we're really trying to figure out what your own unique quality like handwriting characteristics are. Like for me, like the way my T connects into an H in the is very personal to me. So we would take that out, find it like 5 or 6 times in your sentence, pull it out, program it. So that ligature style is programmed to you. We even go down to like, what does an E look like at the beginning of a word versus in the word versus at the end of the word? Because like, think about it, like at the end of a word on an E, like that long tail is going to be longer at the end versus in the middle, right? It's like, there's way too much technology that goes into sending a simple like $2 or $3 handwritten note here. But I mean, it was absolutely necessary, because I wouldn't want to be caught sending a non-genuine looking handwritten note. And the only way to do that was to do all the engineering and development that we have done.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting to think about the thought that has really gone behind that at every level that you shared with us, from the tail of your E to the ink that's going on the paper. It's just pretty phenomenal. And because your process, like you've put so much thought into it, as you're explaining it more and more to me, I'm like, wow, this really is thoughtful. It's going to come off very personal. It feels realer to me.
Well, I mean, what we're obsessed with is being an extension of your business. And if we're doing our job correctly, no one will ever know you used a service. And that's what I'm obsessed with because I mean, I'm very competitive. Like, if you look at my background, like, I'm a very competitive person. I study what's out there. I see how I can improve it. And any competitor should, like, everybody should be cognizant of who else is in their space and what are they doing and how can you be better. And that's just what normal competition is. You study film, right? You study the industry, what's working. That's why you have trade shows. People go there and say, hey, like, show off new technologies, right? So what I've just been really good at is just being relentless, I guess. Like, even like I know things that aren't going to be like in the pipeline for 12 months, we're still developing it now because like as you develop those technologies in the future, you have to be ready for it now. But it was just absolutely necessary. It just was. If you're going to deal with like, professional industries, there just wasn't anything out there that could do it. So we had to do it.
Well, it's pretty amazing. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I know because we got a late start that we're racing the clock right now, and I want to make sure we take a moment and do the off the map question. So you had shared with me earlier that you really like outdoor activities, camping, hiking, backpacking, anything really that gets you outside. So my question for you is, where is your favorite place you've gone camping?
You know what? I would say it's Havasupai down in the Grand Canyon. But what I've really gotten into recently is just really throwing like all my stuff in like my 7-day pack and just kind of walking out like into areas and just kind of forcing myself to challenge myself, I guess, to set up a shelter and make it for a day. And I don't know. It's just I like being outside. It's quiet. You can get away from the phone, those 4,000 digital notifications that we're being swamped with, and just breathe fresh air and get away from all the craziness for a while. But yeah, I think that's just a good thing to do is to get out and recharge out in the wilderness every once in a while.
Do you take your family camping?
I do. So it's more challenging now, but my 5-year-old is just absolutely obsessed like with animals. So I do take my kids. They love it.
Yeah, we have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we used to camp a lot before kids, but got significantly more challenging. So we started in the last year camping again and try to go a handful of times each fall and each spring. But my husband has recently decided that it's time to start doing backcountry camping with them. So we haven't gone on our first backcountry trip yet. I'm going to admit, if he's hearing this, a little bit nervous about it. I don't think that would surprise him. But I am looking forward to it because I agree. It's really nice to get out. It's nice to reset, recharge, and not have all the distractions. Be able just to spend some quality time together, and some quality time outside is a really big deal these days.
Those are trips you'll always remember and they'll always remember. I grew up going like camping at the beach with my family all the time, and every time, I mean, even every trip was a little crazy and a little different. We had a really old RV, and if it would rain, it would leak everywhere, or something wouldn't work. But it was always fun memories. It's like as a kid, you don't care, like you're happy to be out there, and so those are great trips that you'll never regret doing.
Yeah, that's so true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Rick. I want to make sure that our listeners know how to find you. So, friends, if you'd like to learn more about Simply Noted, you can do that on their website, simplynoted.com. And while you're there, you can also request a free handwriting sample kit. If you'd like to learn more about Rick, you can do that on his entrepreneur profile, which has a long URL. So I'll link to it in the show notes. And we'll also link to Rick's LinkedIn. I highly recommend checking it out. Not only are there pictures of finished cards and letters, but there's also videos of the robots, which I am going to admit I really enjoyed watching. So, Rick, thanks so much again. I really appreciate your patience, and you coming on the show today.
Absolutely. And I really do appreciate being here. It was an honor. So thank you so much.
Listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, there's 2 more I recommend. The first is episode 217, Time to Change the Way You Fundraise and Raise More Money with Jack Silverstein. And the second is episode 260, Using Texts to Increase Your Fundraising Dollars with Larry Talley. While you're at it, take a moment and stop by our website. You can see these episodes or listen to these episodes along with all the others in our bank. You can also check out today's episode's show notes and access those links that we just discussed. And of course, you can see what Dolph and I are up to, including any upcoming webinars. That is our show for the week. I hope you have gained some insight to help your nonprofit thrive. And I, of course, have to do the disclaimer. I am not an accountant or attorney, and neither I nor the Goldenberg Group provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. This material has been provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, or accounting advice. Always, always, always consult a qualified licensed professional about such matters.